Thank you, Gil. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. No matter how strongly you feel, I'm going to ask you not to chant Central Bank during my remarks. There's Andrew Jackson in the crowd. All right. You can, however, chant abolish the Department of Education if you wish. If you think it'll do any good, I was Secretary of Education for Ronald Reagan, and the chairman of the committee that was looking at my confirmation, a man named Lowell Weicker, not a great guy, wrote to the president and said, "We will not confirm Bennett as secretary unless you write a letter saying you won't abolish the department." I went to see the president. I said, "You don't have to send that letter. I don't have to do this job. I've got a life elsewhere." He said, "No, I don't think I can get rid of it, but maybe you can make some sense out of it." So I tried to abolish myself. I said, "I hereby abolish myself." And I remember George Will asked the same question that Ron Paul just mentioned about the abolition of the department, but he put it in a typically George Will way. He said, "Must you exist?" The answer is no. Our scores were better before the Department of Education than since its establishment. And we know the single overwhelming influence in a child's education is the parent. Not every teacher is a parent, but every parent is a teacher, the child's first teacher and the child's indispensable teacher. The second most important person in that child's education is the teacher. Not the facilities, not the expenditures, not the whiz-bang, but the quality of that teacher. And we need to be paying more attention to that. I, for one, would pay our good teachers more, and I would get rid of the teachers who are bringing our system and our children down, and I would get rid of them forthwith. But I have a yes or no question for you, not multiple choice. Is it or is it not morning in America? Yes. No. All right, fine. The House is divided. We'll take a poll. I want to talk to you about a couple of things. I have a new book out called, I also have a cold. You may hear it, but I'm not suffering. I don't feel as bad as I sound or look. I have a new book out called The Book of Man, and I want to tell you something about it in a minute. But for now, of course, it would be an affectation not to talk about politics. We are in the book of politics. We are in the throes of politics, and we will be for some time. So a few comments about our political situation. To put it simply, more than 2 years ago, I counseled all who would listen, and counseled myself too, because I wasn't pleased with the result of the election, to give the president a chance. I did, many of us did, and he blew it. Our country bleeds. It should not, and it may not be able to take too many more blows of the sort that it has suffered. The president has advanced policies and governed in a way that is bringing America down. He must go. He must. He must go because he cannot learn a new and better way. I said early on, some of it may depend on his learning curve, but he's in the straitjacket of ideology, and so there's no evidence that can convince him. These are a priori beliefs he holds, a priori beliefs on the left. He is an ideologue of the left, and in that way, in this country, as in every other country where it's been tried, lies ruin. And he must go because he is harming us, harming the country, and he is blaming us and the rest of the country for his own actions and policies. Of late, he is even blaming his own base. And let's be candid about it and about him. In the words of what ought to be a bumper sticker, albeit a long one, if you voted for him last time to prove that you are not a racist, you must vote against him this time to prove that you are not an idiot. And by the way, there is one very persuasive candidate among us who might argue that you could prove both at the same time. By voting for him. But in fact, he doesn't argue that. He leaves it alone, and God bless him for leaving it alone. A few words of counsel, if I may, to all of us. While the notion of race is in the air, race, religion, sect, gender, let us be magnanimous. Let us be true Americans. Let us not indulge in any bigotry. The favorite bigotry of the left, of course, very familiar to us, very familiar to you, is that bigotry against people who publicly love their God and who publicly love their country. To the left, public expressions of one's faith are so mindless and so bereft of sophistication, public expressions of patriotism are down market and low grade in their view. Well, love your God, love your country, pay them no heed, love your country and your God proudly and publicly. Patriotism and faithfulness are virtues. Some kind of studied ambiguity and self-professed moral and intellectual superiority are not. Embrace your faith, your flag, your children, and shine a light into the world. Let the doubters, the pseudo-sophisticates, enjoy each other's company. That's the only company they deserve. And again, emphatically, in proud proclamation of your beliefs and in a desire to win next fall and to restore this country, do not do what the left does regularly. And we do here, I'm sorry to say, only occasionally, but it happens, and it happened here yesterday. I'm thinking of the words of Mr. Jeffress, Pastor Jeffress. Do not give voice to bigotry. Do not give voice to bigotry. Remember George Washington, his manly advice to us, to despise all forms of racial and religious bigotry. He who was first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen, counseled we should give to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance. Let's follow him. And I would say to Pastor Jeffress, you stepped on and obscured the words of Perry and Santorum and Kane and Bachman and everyone else who has spoken here. You did Rick Perry no good, sir, in what you had to say. And if I may say, I hope humorously I have to announce this for the press, in terms of the debate between Mormons and evangelical Christians, I was there first. The one true holy Catholic and Apostolic and Universal Church. And I forgive you all in the name of the Father. And I'm safe unless there's a Jew in the crowd, all right? Even prior claims. Thank you. A few words about the Book of Man and how it fits into our challenges and our political challenges, and some hard things to think about. It seems to me, it strikes me, that although we successfully raise thousands, even millions of boys every year to manhood in this country, you do, people in this audience do, every day, increasingly, we fail to raise boys to manhood, and it's beginning to show. The evidence is there. I think the evidence is clear. If you don't think it is, you don't want to look at the data, talk to young women in their 20s and ask them to talk about men in their 20s and 30s. You'll get a mixed story. It strikes me that we need to help our boys to manhood in a way that we haven't before, in a very intentional way. My book was written to help boys become men. It's a positive book. It does so with readings and stories and living examples. Let me remind you of just two examples in this book. We have never had more fatherlessness in our country. And at the same time, we have never had more encouragement from the culture to boys to engage in the physical acts that will make them fathers, biological fathers anyway. And that's the point. We have now proved the point beyond a reasonable doubt, scores of times over, that the biological act of fathering does not make you a father and does not make you a man. Any more than putting on a helmet, camouflage pants, a backpack, and carrying a gun makes you a soldier. It's in your heart, it's in your actions, it's in your commitments. Thus, there are two Latin words for father, genitor and pater. Genitor is he who is the biological father, gained simply by the biological act. We do not need much instruction in our culture or encouragement to do that. But pater is the other word. In our Latin Lord's Prayer that we used to say in church, Pater noster, qui es in caelis, our Father who art in heaven. That Father is the one who takes care, the one who takes responsibility. The kind of fathers that I understand are displayed in this wonderful new movie, Courageous. That is what we need more instruction in. The father who says to his sons, I will raise you and help you and guide you and protect you from the world. And I will raise you and protect you and guide you and protect the world from you. Because a father of sons, I can tell you, must do both. The second story is this. When I was chairman of the National Endowment for the Humanities, which we can also abolish, fine with me, fine. While we're at it, fine. Also given to me by Ronald Reagan. I did a survey, which turned out to be very useful. I asked people, about 250 people, from all across the political spectrum, what are the 10 books every student should be familiar with by the time they finish high school? The remarkable thing about the answers was the congruence. There was a degree of consensus I didn't expect from the people writing. The agreement was about 4 or 5 central books, and it was almost unanimous. The Bible. One critic of the Bible said, I don't like it, but it's all there. That's correct. Shakespeare. The founding documents of this country, the Federalist Papers, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. And the fourth was very interesting to me, the Iliad and the Odyssey, Homer's great epic poem. I tell the story again in this, The Book of Man, and combine it with a contemporary reflection. You remember in the Odyssey, Odysseus, Ulysses, Kirk Douglas, however you like to remember, is gone for 20 years from his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus. Penelope, of course, yearns for him. She weaves every day and undoes the weaving at night so that she's never finished, so that she can tell the suitors who want her to think that Odysseus is dead and then will marry one of them, that her work is not done at her spinning wheel. But the real hardship, it always seemed to me, the greater hardship fell on the son, Telemachus, who saw his mother beleaguered by the suitors, pressed by them to marry them, hearing his father called names. And Telemachus, we hear, brooding and unhappy and not yet a man, wishes as much for his father as does his wife, Penelope. Of course, he returns home. Odysseus sees his son, and then his wife slays the suitors and is restored. But the story of Telemachus, as Homer tells it, and as it can be told again today, is very moving. Walker Newell, a professor of literature who teaches the Odyssey, says he has been teaching it for 30 years. But he says something has changed over 30 years. As he tells the story of Telemachus, he says, each year classrooms grow more and more quiet, for more and more of the boys are Telemachus. He says this is a problem that needs to be addressed not only through literature, but through policy and through the hands of fathers, because not all who leave come home, as does Odysseus. This is a problem that is not, in the first instance, political, but it has political consequences and ramifications, and we must think about it, especially those of us who say we want less government. We want government to be less on our backs. We want smaller government. And it is a great cry that has gone out from the land about that. The Economist magazine, not a conservative publication, but a very well-written and smart one, had a good thing to say about the Tea Partiers. I sent around to all my liberal columnist friends. They said, where else but in America would large groups of people gather in the public square, shake their fists, and say, give us less, give us less. That's one difference between the Tea Party on the conservative side and what they're calling the left Tea Party in New York. Government is a problem, and there is too much of it, and it is too big. But be careful, too, when we talk about government. I think there is too much government, but there are parts of it I would preserve. There is too much government, but I don't think you can ever have too many United States Marines. Now, what is it you guys say, hoo-ah? Yeah, better than central bank. I like that. So remember this too. The family with a mother and a father is indeed the best and original department of health, education, and welfare. But when it collapses, when it falls apart, or as we see increasingly, it never forms in the first place, to whom do women and children turn? Sometimes it is to the government. So a responsibility on our part, those of us who want less government, is to do more outside of government, as women and as men, so that that need for government and that turning to government is not required in so many cases. So a question put squarely to you and to us. How many women and children feel themselves forced to government and government assistance because of the failure of men to live up to the consequences of their actions? Right. This too, even in this political season, is worth some time and attention. So we must work in the political world, and I eagerly do so every day of the week. We must do so for sure. But at the same time, we must work above the political sphere and below it. Thank you very much. Thank you.